Welcome to Wild Shift episode number 7. My name is Tzach, and over the past few years, I've been reflecting on my life in my home country, on the choices that led me to where I am today. In this podcast, I dive into the stories of people who have made bold changes in their lives, leaving behind comfort for something new and unknown. Join me as I explore what inspired them to take these leaps and discover the impact of their decisions. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Olivia Gorvy Rotem, who made the unexpected decision to relocate to Israel from New York in 2017. Born in New York City and raised in Virginia, Olivia considers herself a New Yorker at heart. But within just 2 months of being in Israel, she knew it was the place for her, leading her to make aliyah that same year. Since then, Olivia has found a thriving community, career opportunities, and even met the love of her life. Despite the intense challenges and heightened stress from the ongoing war, she remains dedicated to building her life in Israel, drawn by a deep sense of connection and resilience. Today, she'll share what keeps her grounded in the face of chaos and why Israel, with all its complexities, still feels like home. Hi. So I'm here with Olivia. Wow, we know each other for a long time.
I know. When did we meet? How did we meet?
I don't know, like 7 years ago from like a shared friend. I'm here for a visit in Israel for the past 2 weeks. And I was thinking of you the past couple of weeks. And I was like, when I come to Israel, I really need to talk to Olivia. The reason is I'm very interested in knowing people's stories about transformations and shifts from where they were and where they're now. And I wanted to ask you, when did you first move to Israel?
It was August 2017.
Wow.
So 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like 7 years. Sometimes it feels like it was yesterday. Sometimes I feel like I've been here for 30 years. But yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Wild ride.
Yeah.
And where are you from originally?
So when I'm in Israel, I say I'm from New York because it's easier because I was born in New York. I went to college in New York. I lived there for 10 years. But technically, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Which is like a very suburban town on the East Coast. Good place to grow up, but very boring.
Very boring.
Very boring. Very boring.
Okay. And when did you actually think of doing that huge shift of moving to somewhere so chaotic like this? I mean, the background is like the beach and the nice buildings, but it's chaotic.
It is chaotic. Honestly,
the suburbs.
It was like totally on a whim. Like my parents are South African. And my mom is one of 5 siblings. And actually 3 of her siblings live here in Israel. 2 made aliyah, like moved here in their 20s.
Just to explain to people that doesn't know what aliyah.
Yeah. So aliyah is sort of the Jewish rite of return, where Jewish people are able to pretty easily come back to Israel and gain citizenship. I think it's the only country in the world where you can literally get citizenship within like a couple of weeks. It's amazing. And they give you a lot of benefits to come back to our ancestral homeland.
Yeah.
So my aunt and uncle from South Africa both moved here in their 20s out of a sense of Zionism. So when I was growing up, I actually didn't come here ever until I was 18.
Okay.
The first time I came here was on a Taglit birthright trip, which is a way to bring Jewish people from the diaspora to have like a crazy fun 10-day drunken hookup trip in Israel with Israeli soldiers.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Like Israelis love the Taglit people. They're like,
and we love them.
Yeah. It's fresh, different blood.
Exactly. So I'd actually never been to Israel till I was 18, but because my aunt and uncle lived here, I would hear, all the time about Israel, but I had a very skewed perspective of what Israel was growing up, because mainly you see it on the news, you see wars and bombs and rockets and suicide attacks all of the time. And, my mom was constantly worried for her brother and sister who were living here. And that's the Israel I had in my mind. And in my mind, Israel was a third world country. Like it was like a war-torn, bomb-ridden third world country. And never in a million years did I think I would live here. Really. Like it because that's the view that I had of Israel growing up. And that's sort of, things you learn in your childhood. That's like what you absorb. And also my parents never brought us here, even though we had family here, which was kind of weird. And I grew up in a household that was very pro-Israel, very Zionist. Like they supported Israel, they donated to Israel, but it wasn't, some American Jews grow up in families where every summer they come to Israel. It's like part of their culture, to bring their kids to Israel. And for us, it wasn't a thing. So when I came to Israel when I was 18, I had fun. It was a great trip, 10-day trip. Saw traipsed all over the desert in the north and everywhere. But again, I was like, okay, Israel's fun. I had a great time, but I didn't feel any overwhelmingly strong connection at that point in time. I was 18, just finished my first year of college in America. Many years after that, when I was 31, I'd moved back to New York from San Francisco, and I was working at a startup, and my life there was just super intense. I was working 14-hour days at a startup, and I realized that I was like, I need to take some time off. And I decided to do a sabbatical, which I used to work at Facebook, and a lot of people at Facebook took, these sort of 6-month, 8-month sabbaticals, these breaks from work, which is a very privileged thing to be able to do. I fully acknowledge that. But it's something I really wanted to do, to just move somewhere, live in a different country, and not work for a little while. Take some time off, And I decided that I wanted to live in South Africa because my parents are from South Africa.
Yeah. But you don't have any family there yet.
I have cousins, extended family, and a lot of family friends. And on a whim, I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to move to Cape Town, which for me is the most beautiful place in the world. And no return ticket. Let's just see what happens. And I got to Cape Town and just had the best time. I rented an apartment there. I did yoga every day. I read a book a week. It was such a special time to just sort of shed my layers of corporate anxiety, from working an intense job. One of my closest friends in South Africa was my second cousin on that side of the family, Brent. And Brent was coming to Israel that summer. I moved to South Africa in March, and this was now June. And he was going to Tel Aviv for a couple of weeks, and my grandpa called him and was like, take Olivia with you. And I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? I don't have plans. I don't have a job. I was subletting my apartment in Manhattan. And I was like, sure, let's go. It was just on an adventure. And I came here with Brent that June 2017, and that was the first time where I got to spend significant amounts of time in Tel Aviv.
Wow.
Because when you're on the birthright trips that you travel all over the country, you're in Tel Aviv for one night. You don't get to experience the city.
Yes, as a local.
Exactly.
As a local person.
As a local. Yeah. And so Brent and I, my cousin, got an Airbnb, right in the center of Tel Aviv in June, which is summer, just amazing vibe.
It's the beginning of the summer. There's LGBT pride.
I was so excited. Everyone's going out every night. There's just this amazing energy and dynamism. And I didn't know that Israel existed. And, I was here for, I don't know if, like, in the end, I kept extending my time here. But, like, the first couple of weeks, I just had the best time. I didn't have a job. So I just, like, walked around the city, went to the beach every day, went out at night, was meeting people. I had, like, a few friends from the U.S. who were in Europe that came over for, like, a few days. And we just had the best time. And I was like, wait, Tel Aviv is this, like, incredible dynamic party city, right? Like, the people here are so fun and so open, and I think I was just surprised that Tel Aviv was actually like quite a sophisticated city. Like, you walk around Tel Aviv and it looks very grungy, right? Like, a lot of, like, the buildings are run down, but then you go to, like, one of the best restaurants in the world, and I was like, wait, they have this amazing food scene, culinary scene. They also have this amazing startup scene of, like, these incredible tech companies, and I really didn't realize that about Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
So my mind was sort of blown when I was here those few weeks, and was like, wait, this is an amazing, amazing city.
Yeah. And the weather and the food and the people.
The men. Like,
the combination of, like,
everybody.
Moroccan and Polish, Swedish
God.
and from Syria, like,
Exactly.
combination of, like,
That's
dark and
another thing.
white features.
I didn't realize how diverse Israel was.
Mm.
And, like, for me, that was really important. Like, spending most of my adult life in New York, I love the diversity in New York. Like, that's part of the charm of New York. And in Israel, I was like, no, everyone's the same. And that's not true at all. It's actually, like, an incredibly diverse society. Yes, most people are Jewish, but Jews from, as you said, Morocco, Iran, Iraq, Libya, right?
Yeah.
Like, all over the world.
Yeah. Russia, Ukraine, Poland.
And
Hungary.
I didn't really know that before I came here. And I just had the best time. Like, I kept extending for a few weeks. My cousin went back to South Africa. I stayed, got another Airbnb. And then, but still the idea of moving here didn't cross my mind. Because I was like, I'm just having fun. Like, this is a fun place for me to spend the summer. A week later, this was now, like, July, I'd been here, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks. And I went back to New York because my sublet was leaving and I had an apartment. I was paying for an apartment. And I was like, okay, it's been 6 months at this point that I hadn't been working. And I was like, I need to get a job. Like, I need to earn money again.
Right.
What do I want to do? And truthfully, I was like, I really miss Facebook. I had the best time when I worked at Facebook. And I was like, I think I want to go back to Facebook.
Yeah.
And I got through, like, the first 2 rounds, which were phone interviews. And then I had in-person interviews in the upcoming days. And I remember, like, talking on the phone to my dad. I, like, vividly remember I was, like, on a corner in New York, like, on the street, talking to him, being like, I don't know, like, something doesn't feel right about this. I weirdly feel that I, like, want to go try and live in Tel Aviv. And he was like, just do it then. Just go, like, make up your mind and do it. And I was like, okay. And what I kept telling myself was, you don't have to move there permanently. This can be something you go try. And if it doesn't work out, come back to New York. There was a part of me that was, like, so scared of failing, right? So in my mind, I was like, I can't set this up as I'm permanently moving to Tel Aviv. I'm going to try. I'm going to see what happens, and we'll go with the flow. And I'm a very decisive person. So, like, once I made that decision, I was, like, all in. I sold all of my furniture. Everything, like, sort of, like, worked out in terms of timing. My lease was literally up, like, in 2 weeks, my year-long lease. So I didn't have to, like, find someone else to take over. Sold all my things and bought, like, a one-way ticket to Tel Aviv. And I landed here on August 8th, 2017.
What did you find here in Tel Aviv that you couldn't find there in New York or in San Francisco? And you know,
So I felt that I love my life in New York. New York's an amazing city. It's tied with Tel Aviv as the best city in the world, you know? And it has a lot of the same energy that I love about Tel Aviv. But I felt that for me, my life in New York had become very predictable, that I had sort of like plateaued, right? I had this great group of friends who I'd been friends with for 10 years. I knew exactly what I would do every weekend. We'd go to a restaurant on Friday night. We'd like do day drinking on Saturday. I wasn't meeting new people at all. New York is a very cliquey place. You have your group of friends, either from work or from high school or college. You go to a bar, you talk to them, you don't meet anyone. And I just felt that I like looked 5 years into the future and my life was just exactly the same. It was stagnant. Exactly. It was stagnant. And I was like, I don't want that. I want something more than that. I want an adventure. I don't want to like look back 5 years from now and be like, I could have made this move and tried it out and I didn't because I would have regretted it. And while I was only in Tel Aviv for like a month before deciding to move here, I met new people every day. And that's what I love about Tel Aviv. Like there's this amazing, you feel like there's so many more possibilities here.
Right.
I know that sounds
possibilities in terms of social life.
Social life, yeah. And just like you meet someone randomly on the street. I met people on the beach. I was very open to it, right? It also depends on like where you are. And if you feel like you're in a good headspace and emotional space to be open to that. But I met so many new people all of the time. And it wasn't like, it didn't feel like a burden. Like, oh my God, I have to go and make friends now. It was like, this is so easy. There's so many people who want to make friends, who want to meet.
And it feels very genuine.
Genuine.
Like it doesn't, it's not like, let's meet next Monday. It doesn't happen. Like it actually happens here.
People genuinely want to hang out, meet new people. And that's what I was missing in New York. I didn't feel like there was any possibility to meet new people. And I'm not just talking about, like relationships. Like I also was single at the time. And of course, like I did want to find someone, like a nice Jewish boy. But at that point in time, that was just like a secondary thing, like I didn't move here to find my husband. I moved here for an adventure, to meet new people, to like enrich my life, and it has done that.
And maybe it's and maybe it is a combination of everything, like the social, and then you can find your career path here. It's a combination of like the weather and the career and the food and the guys.
It literally is that. And that's what I say. I'm like, I joke sometimes. I'm like, I moved here for the food, but like that was a big part.
Just a part of it. Yeah.
Like, for me, it actually like was a big part of it because the food here is amazing, and I am really into food, and I loved that I could go to like these incredible restaurants like whenever I wanted, like on my street. I remember when I was here before I moved, my brother had come to visit and we went to North Abraxas.
Wow.
Which is a famous chef, Eyal Shani, very like iconic Israeli restaurant. I was eating there and I was like, what? This food is incredible, right? Like, so it really was a factor. But you're right. It really was this combination. Meeting people, the weather, going to the beach, the parties, knowing that I wouldn't have to go backwards in my career, hopefully. Right. That was the big question, though, for me when I moved here. That was sort of like the big question mark was, can I actually get a job where I feel like I'm not having to go back to be like a entry-level account manager? I was 31. Like I'd been 10 years in a tech career. And I was like, if I'm unable to find a job here at the level that I want, I won't be able to stay.
Yeah, like hopefully it won't damage your career path.
Yeah.
When you're talking like, wow, I feel so many emotions when you talk, because I can actually cry, because it really feels like when you talk about Tel Aviv, this is Tel Aviv the way I remember it, and the way you remember it, and the way everyone remember it, like that vibrant, sexy, happening, lively vibe.
And it feels
You know,
very
like the
far.
food and the beach and the food and the people, and that kind of like I want to eat that city. And it's for me when I talk when you it's like it's almost like when you remember the movie Titanic, when she talks about the Titanic, how she fell and the people and how amazing it was, and now it's just a sinking ship, or it's like a sank ship. It's not that it's not right. It's not like it's not. It's like that here. Like it's still things still happening here in Tel Aviv. But you know, before we woke up to do this podcast, we had a siren like this morning, 7:30 a.m. And that's how I woke up this morning. I went to the bomb shelter and like, you know, rockets and stuff. And, you know, things are still happening. And now we're recording this podcast and we moved here. We had a coffee after and we will go somewhere else after, I don't know where. But it just feels so blocked. And what you're saying now about Tel Aviv, it's like just what I needed to hear to remember that that's how I remember it. Wow. Yes.
But it feels very that Tel Aviv feels very distant right now.
Very distant.
Like I remember it and I love it, and it's sort of what keeps me here, you know, because I know that at its heart that is what Tel Aviv is. It's this incredible, vibrant city, but I haven't felt that Tel Aviv in a long time. You know, between COVID and it was crazy because I moved here in 2017. I didn't even know that there were bomb shelters in the apartments.
It's mandatory to have a bomb shelter in the house.
I didn't know it was a thing because for my first 4 years here, I did not hear one siren. There was not one rocket. There was not one incident. It was peace, really. And that's why in my head, Tel Aviv was this like idyllic place. And then 4 years in, we had sort of the first issue with rockets, and then it was Corona, and now, of course, for the past year since October 7th, it's just been a completely different reality living here. And it also, like you said, it can make you cry. It can make me cry too, you know, because like that is what Tel Aviv is at its core. It is this incredible city, and it's you know, I've had so many friends over the years come to visit me, many of whom have not been Jewish, so they don't have any like emotional ties to Israel or to Tel Aviv, and they're obsessed with Tel Aviv.
Yeah,
they literally tell me that this is the best city they've ever been to. It's so much fun. They want to come back. I have 2 guy friends, again, both not Jewish. They come every single year.
yeah. So many people that I know also coming from Italy or coming from London or coming from anywhere in the world. And I remember that the last big gay pride, we had like almost 1 million tourists coming from everywhere in the world.
Yeah, we had this amazing pride parade, like amazing everything. And the past year, it's just felt like there's this dark cloud.
It's just a dark cloud. And it also feels like not even, and maybe you can resonate more as an American, because it feels like a dark cloud when you're inside. And I feel it the past 2 weeks that I've been here. But it's also dark cloud to be outside of it. You know, we have like internal war here, and we also have the external war. So as a Jewish person walking around the world, you know, like I can't expose my Hebrew tattoos sometimes. And I can sometimes expose my identity. And, you know, it's important for me to mention that it's not even about politics. It's not, your fault, their fault. It's not about that. This is a different conversation that it's not relevant for that, but it's just about the people. It's about the person. It's about like, you know, it's the same like that person that lives in Gaza or in Lebanon or in Israel, you know, like we didn't choose. We just want to live life.
We just want to live like that's the thing. Like we don't want this war. we want to live like in peace, right? Like but there's this heaviness hanging over Israel right now, and Israelis. You don't have to be in Israel, like you said, to feel that heaviness, right? Like you're still connected to the people and the country, and you have 101 hostages that have been in Gaza for a year, which is insane to think about. And when you can't avoid it. You walk down the street, you see posters of them everywhere, right? Like I'm sure you're like me, you feel like you know some of them. That weighs on you, right? You have sirens. We had a siren this morning. This happens every couple of weeks. That weighs on you. Every few days, there are soldiers being killed in Lebanon, in Gaza. That weighs on you. Seeing what's happening in Gaza weighs on you, right? Like it's just an insane amount of trauma that Israelis, Jews, and everyone in the region is dealing with. And it's, I've thought about this a lot. I think Israelis are the most amazing people in the world because you all are so resilient, right? Like you said, we had a siren this morning. All right, we run to the bomb shelter, then we get up and now we're here and drinking coffee and chatting. And Americans, if that happened to them, they would be locked in their house for 3 weeks because they would be so scared because they're not used to it. And I don't blame them. That's how I was too at first. And I think this Israeli resilience is really special. People get up after terror attacks on the train, and they're on the train the next morning, and they go back to work, and we're powering some of the most amazing technology in the world, right? Like Waze, and we have massive R&D offices for Facebook and Google and Amazon, and we get up and we get on with it. And even with all of this heaviness weighing on us, and I think it's amazing. I really do.
But why being resilient rather than just leaving? Like you can go back to the U.S. You can go back to wherever you want to in the U.S. Living like
it's
in
a
peace.
Good question, and it's something I've thought about the past year. I think about our friend Emily, our mutual friend, who's the best. And I think, if I were in her shoes, like I didn't have an Israeli partner, anything like really tiny here, I would have left this year.
Would you?
I think so. I think because it's been such, if I hadn't if I didn't have any significant ties to Israel, I mean, maybe I would have stayed. I don't know. But in my mind, I'm like, why would I have stayed? Right? Like, why would I have stayed during this really tough, terrible year? Now I'm married to an Israeli, and we want to build our life here, There are never moments where I'm like, I want to move back to America right now. Right? Like, I really don't feel that overwhelmingly, but I do have moments where I'm like, if this continues for another year, that's when I'm going to have to question if it makes sense to stay here, to live with this trauma, and this, it's not just trauma, like your nervous system is in constant fight or flight. I hear a motorcycle. Right, it's a siren. Right, like
electric cars sometimes.
Exactly, everything. You're super on edge. My husband goes out to the grocery store. I'm literally tracking him because I'm so afraid there's going to be a terror attack on the way. And I never used to think this way. Okay.
And with me also, sometimes when I go walk on the beach, I think I post like million stories on Instagram. Like I see all these memories and the hostages, and there's a sign everywhere you go that there is a war. Graffiti and stickers and posters, wild yellow ribbons, people that died, like don't forget us, all these stuff, like bring them home. And it's just and it's good to raise awareness, but as a person, as a soul, it keeps reminding you that you can't be happy. You're not allowed to go partying. You can, because parties are still exist, but you don't feel that way. That's just personally speaking.
I feel the same way. You have to give yourself moments of joy and fun. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to survive this climate for a year plus. And like, that's the reality. So you could never fully tap into that joy, that like carefreeness that we used to have living here. You just can't do it right now. And I also think, though, I love this country. I love what it's given me. I love the sense of community that I feel here. And someone has to stay and fight for that. If everyone leaves, then Israel will not be the Israel that we know today. Because, it will turn into like a religious, like totalitarian state.
Yeah. But I think the world I think you can say that about every country. And like, I'm talking to a lot of people, and that podcast, that's the essence of it. Like, a lot of people, there's like, the world is getting crazy, I think, mostly after COVID. And there's a lot of shifts, like people coming from Spain to here, from London to whatever. There's a lot of like changes. And, I think it's okay to say, like, as you start saying before, like, this was my everything. Like, this was such a charming place and vibrant. And it's not anymore. Like, San Francisco was beautiful for you, or New York, but it wasn't anymore. And maybe, like, maybe we should release that attachment to something that is not anymore.
I still have a lot of hope, though, that we'll get back to that, right? In my mind, this isn't a lasting change. This is a short-term change because of the war and because of what happened on October 7th. And I have like a tiny spark of hope that like all of this bloodshed and violence and people dying on both sides will somehow bring about a better Middle East, a safer Middle East. I don't know, right? Like, maybe that's delusional. I don't know. But I'm hopeful that we can get back to that Tel Aviv that I talked about before when I came here, and that the war will end and there won't be as many terror attacks and we'll feel safe again. And Tel Aviv will be the city where we all want to live and raise families. But if it doesn't get back to that, like, I feel like I'm lucky. I'm an American citizen. I can leave. My husband can get a green card.
Yeah.
We can leave. We can go to America. I hope it doesn't get to that place. Because I don't want to leave.
You don't?
I don't. I really don't. Like, I really love it here. And
do you feel like you can raise your children and feel safe for them? It's a really honest question, but I'm curious.
Yeah, it's so on the one hand, Israel's the only place I want to raise kids.
Okay.
Because it has this beautiful sense of community and openness. And it's also really important that I raise my kids with a deep connection to Judaism. I grew up in a very Jewish household. I loved it. And I want to instill that in my kids. But of course, like, my kids, I don't want my kids growing up in a war zone.
Right.
And that's why it's sort of going to be a question of how long does this go on for? At what point do I say, like, enough is enough?
Yeah, what's more solid, safety or connection?
And the thing is, if I had a place that I was like so excited to move to, it would be different. I left America for a reason, right? Like, I felt like, again, thinking about like moving back and living in like the suburbs where I grew up, like, that like kills my soul. Like, that level of boredom, like, here again, there's an excitement, even if it's a bad excitement, right? Like, there's something going on.
Something, yeah.
There's such intensity.
Action never stops.
Yeah. In America, like in the suburbs, living that like suburban picket fence with your kids, that life to me seems like soul sucking.
Not stimulating
at all. And I can't do it. I can't. Like, I would be so unhappy there. But again, like, it's sort of like a wait and see right now.
I'll wait and see.
Yeah. Like talk to me in a year from now if we're still in the same situation with the war and sirens and terror attacks. Like, I don't think my nervous system can take it. You know,
Everyone's nervous system, you know.
like it's we're stuck in this post-trauma, current trauma. It's insane what like we're expected to deal with here. I'm praying that in a year from now we can have this conversation again and we can look back and say the war ended, the hostages are back alive, God willing, and things are calmer here in Tel Aviv. Life here feels more authentic, you know?
Yeah. And you know, like I had this conversation with Veronica, I think it was episode number 5, and we talked about the essence of the tribe. You know, sometimes it's way more important than anything, because it's important to mention that even before the war, there was a war. We're always in constant wars.
It's true.
And, you know, it's not even like the war with like the external, it's just like, you know, cost of living. It's like number 1 most expensive country in the world, and like politics and corruption. And, you know, it's just people here are a little bit more aggressive because it's still the Middle East. So there's like things are always happening. But people still live here because they feel the sense of tribe is much more dominant or solid or whatever than other countries. And that's why they stay here. You know, they take loans and they still survive here because it's like, you know, feel connected. And that's what we want at the end of the day.
Exactly. You want connection. And Israelis just in general have like a joie de vivre, a love of life. Really, like our toast, our cheers is l'chaim, to literally to life. You know, like we love life.
Right.
And you feel that wherever you go, whether, you know, I always think of Israeli weddings versus American weddings. American weddings are stiff and stuffy, and it's very much by the book. You have to do the first dance with the dad, and then you have to do the bouquet throwing, and it's very like, it feels like a little robotic. And here, weddings are crazy and joyous, and everyone's just having the best time. And it's everything here just feels more genuine and more authentic. And I think most people, like, that's what they want, you know? And like, I know if I were ever to move back to the U.S., and again, I never say never. I don't know what will happen. It would be really hard to leave Israel.
Yeah.
Even amidst the craziness.
You know, it's interesting. It's so funny because sometimes I speak to like Americans that used to live in Israel, and like sometimes those people, they see things differently or they say things differently, and it's almost like you have like your pink glasses and you're like almost like American shaming.
Yeah.
And it's like Israel is the best. Israel is the best, and Americans are less. And like those people sometimes, and even myself, I can be honest with that. And it's like they see it differently, you know, like, you know, in America, you go and you have a line and you stand on the line, you know, like you go and you have a contract and you believe that the contract is real. And, you know, like, and here, you know, people are so chaotic. People don't stand on the line.
Totally.
And, you know, honking on the road and like people shouting on each other. It seems like you still have your pink Israeli glasses.
Look, I'm an optimist by nature. There are lots of things in this country that annoy the hell out of me. But
it's far from being perfect. Way before the war.
Way before the war. Totally. I don't know. I sort of just like see it as part of the charm of Israel. You know, like I definitely do still have my like rose colored glasses on. But I really love it, and I think actually the war has made me like more love Israel even more, right?
Really?
Not because of what we're dealing with, but just because so many people hate us. So it's made me be like, no, like Israel's an amazing country. The Israeli people are amazing people, and like I feel like called to like defend Israel all the time. And the people defend the people all of the time. And that doesn't mean I don't like talk shit about Israelis. I also talk shit about Americans. You know, like no one's perfect. And but when we first had sirens, I don't know, a few years ago for the first time, I was deathly afraid, right? Like, it's scary. Someone is literally sending rockets to try and kill you. No, I'm like, okay, whatever. Go to the shelter, come out, get on with your life. I've become more resilient. I've also become more, I don't want to use the word aggressive. It's more just like I ask for what I want in situations, whether it's in work or, squabbling with someone over a price in the shuk or things like that. Israel has definitely like shaped the way that I act and react to things. But yeah, I like I'm diehard Israel. I think I will always be, just because I am so grateful because Israel has given me so much. Like, I came here and it could have not worked out. I could have not found a good job. I could have not found good people, and I would have had to have left. And instead, my career has like blossomed here. I found an amazing community of friends. I found my amazing husband, like the love of my life, right? Like, Israel has given so much to me.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I have so many memories from Israel and being excited from every little corner of this country. Like, I live here for most of my life, 35 years of my life, and obviously like family and roots and everything. And I remember so many phases of this country, of being this or being that. I was born and this, and like in a war, like when I was 4, I was living in a bomb shelter. And so that I remember so many phases, and I do remember the goodness, and what you're talking about is resonating so deeply, like that kind of like, no matter what, we live here, no matter what, we it's our country and we don't care. And like there's a siren, and 10 minutes after, you see people like drinking beer on the street, and then people dying on the news, and still things are happening. But it's important for me to say, and part of my journey, like I took a break from Israel just before the war, because my friend Maya told me, the war started for me before the war. And it was really interesting because what she said to me was really powerful. She said to me, I was in the beach that is right in front of us. She was like, it was just so part of me. And I looked at the buildings and I felt disgust. Like, I felt like I cannot live in this place anymore.
Yeah.
And, like, the glass is full, and it's devastating. For me, it's so devastating because I want to feel good. It's my city, it's my culture, it's my language, it's my family and my friends and my job, and it's everything. And I want to feel great here. I want to feel the way you feel. I want to feel, no matter what, I'm here. I'm optimistic. I have hope. And I wanted to feel that way, but just my nervous system didn't allow that. I was after a breakup, and I was after many things, and, the protests and politics, and I was so integrated into everything.
But I get it. That's why, I left America. I also felt that way about America. I was like, I can't do it anymore.
I can't do it anymore. It's not even logically, you can't explain it. The mind doesn't even work. It's just the body. It's just the body saying more than the logic say.
And it sort of doesn't even matter where you are. Like, it was Israel for you, it was America for me. Like, I always tell people, go and like take your sabbatical, take your time away, move somewhere else. Like, that is such an enriching experience to get to go and live in another country and experience life in another country. And like, I have lots of, my husband's 2 siblings live in America. They don't live here. And I get it, right? Like, they love Israel, but they wanted to live somewhere else and to have a life somewhere else. And I really, really get that. And so I never I understand when people leave Israel. I really do. And I understand when people leave America because they want to experience something different. The one thing about Israelis, though, that I feel almost all Israelis that I've met that have left Israel want to come back at some point. Do you feel that way? You're not.
I do. I do. I do. Not in this context.
Yeah.
I also feel, and maybe other Israelis can resonate with me, like judged. Like
you left.
Like judged, like you left, you escaped, you almost like betrayed the country. So even like when you go abroad, you can see like a group of Israelis. We're so together. We're so all the time. Someone told me like it's so hard to penetrate that circle. So when you leave that, and it's like, this is not the real life out there. This is the real life because that's what people knows, and that's what I know, and that's what I knew. So I feel kind of like judged.
I get that.
Not explicitly, people say like judging me, but sometimes it's like, okay,
I
like
understand
we're
that.
waiting for you to come back.
But I feel like that's only mainly in the context of the war, or at least the way that I think about it, because people are like, no, you have to stay here. We have to fight. We have to fight for the country that we want Israel to be. And even before the war, with all of the political protests and everything that was going on. But I like really understand why people need a break. And a break could be like you're doing, where you're going for however long and living abroad, or just like going on vacation. Like I went to Italy this summer and I needed it. I don't think I realized how much I needed a break from Israel. Like having that time to just like unwind and breathe and not have to worry about sirens or running to shelters restored me. It rejuvenated me so much to have that. And I like literally I say that to people all the time. Like I manage like a big team at my company, and I'm like, take your vacation, go. Like what we're dealing with right now is not normal. It's not normal. And we're expected to deal with it and perform at our normal 100% performance level. Also not normal to have that expectations, and I make that very clear to like the people I manage on my team. Like what we're dealing with is insane and intense. And if you can't do your work this week at the best of your ability because of what's going on, that's okay. Israelis don't really acknowledge the intensity that we're living through, right? Like it's very much like, yeah, beseder, it will be okay. Let's just get on with it. Let's like sort of push the trauma inside and go do your job, do it really, really well. This shouldn't affect you. And I don't see things that way. Like, yes, I think Israelis are amazing and so resilient, and I've learned to be more resilient because of that. But I think it's very important to acknowledge that we're living in this incredibly traumatic time, and that inevitably you are going to be impacted by it in some way. And if that means one day you come into work and you just can't concentrate because you see what's happening outside and you have to run to a shelter that morning with your 3 kids screaming, like that is okay, right? Like it is okay to be fragile and to be emotional and to be upset and to let it impact your work and for things to be a little messy, right? Like I don't think Israelis are great at giving people that grace and that like ability to be sad or to be upset or to be scared.
I can so agree with you, and it's so good that you acknowledge that and you encourage your employees, or you're aware of that. It reminds me of my manager was managing me from Italy, and he was more aware of what's happening here than I was. He was really on top of those things, and he'd be like, stay at home, don't go to work. Like everyone were still going to work. We were like, no, it's not safe to do that. Like what you see out from the outside is not what you see from the inside. But it's so important because sometimes we work on automatic mode and we so get used to it. And we should, You know, like when you live in a jungle, you have to get used to the jungle,
exactly,
you know?
exactly. But you also need to give yourself moments to just like take care of yourself. For me, a lot of it is like my escapism is TV. I find like a great show that's like totally fun, rom-com or whatever, and I just like let myself watch TV for 8 hours straight, right?
Yeah.
And like giving yourself whatever it is that like let your nervous system calm down a little. And just like give yourself grace, right?
Right.
Like we have to, because what we're living through right now is insane.
Yeah.
It's not normal. Like Israelis don't remind themselves of that. They're like, yeah, because I guess to Israelis this is normal, but it isn't. It really is.
And you really feel that when you come for a short
Yeah,
sneak peek.
it's just not normal, and like I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not normal, and that most people in the world don't live like this.
No, for her, definitely not. No, I mean, in the Middle East, yes, and even sometimes worse, you know, like from the other side.
Honestly, I think if I went back to America, I wouldn't see it as courageous. I see it as like this is the easy thing to do, is to go back. I would judge myself. Like you say,
Okay.
like Israelis judge, you feel like they judge you a little for leaving.
Wow.
I would judge myself for leaving, for like not being able to cut it. You know, because I know lots of people who are expats who moved here, and honestly, a lot of them have moved back. And I maybe I like to say I don't judge them. I don't judge them. I get it. I really, really do. But I think a part of me is like, no, Olivia, like you're staying here. Like you are. It does show like I think people who stay here, it shows a strength of character, right? Like I have a neighbor in my building. She's single. She's been here. She actually moved like the same month as me. Doesn't have any family here. And she has like stayed through this war, through this year. She works for an American company. She could easily go back, and she's just stuck it out. And I think that commitment is incredible. I really do. I'm like so in awe of her. Like, I'm like, you're amazing that you're here and you're doing it on your own.
So it's almost like you feel like you're proud of them.
Yeah, I am. I'm proud of them, and I'm like proud of myself too for staying here. But I do get bummed when people leave, because I'm like, I know the people who leave, all of them without doubt are like, I love Israel. I'm obsessed with Israel. But it got too hard, or I didn't meet my person, or the language barrier was too intense, or too expensive, or XYZ. And like, that really makes me sad, you know, because I know that almost everyone sees Israel, sees Tel Aviv the way that I saw it when I first moved here. You know, you said it too. Like, you know that Tel Aviv, you know that feeling. And when there are these outside factors that like force you to leave, you know, because it's too expensive, or there's a war and it's scary and there are attacks all the time, like that sucks. You know, like I want Israel and Tel Aviv to get back to that like idyllic state that it was 7 years ago when I moved here. You know, if I had moved here this past summer before October 7th and then had gone through this year, I would have never known that Tel Aviv, right? Like, and I see these young people who I follow, these like Jewish influencers who I follow on Instagram, and a couple of them literally moved here like October 1st.
Wow.
This past year.
Oh my God.
All I've known is this Israel. And I'm like, for that.
I'm so sorry for you.
Exactly. I feel so bad. I'm like, this makes me so sad, because you've never seen the Tel Aviv that like I know. And for them, I'm like 100%, of course you should go back. Like, why would you stay here when you only know this like crazy war-torn Israel of the past year? For them, I completely understand why they would want to leave. And yet there's still people moving to Israel. There's still like young people moving to Israel. And I think it's crazy now in this period. And I think it's amazing. Like their dedication to wanting to Zionism or to whatever it is, to having an adventure, You know, like my mom's best friend from Australia, her son, he's like 31, 32. He literally made aliyah 2 weeks ago. I'm like, are you out of your mind?
Are you crazy?
Literally, that's what I think. You're moving to Israel in the midst of this crazy war, this like multi-sided war.
Wow, okay.
I'm like, good for you. Like, I'm like, I don't know why you did it, but cool, great job.
Yeah. And I think you would also probably, maybe you have a little wish to leave, but I hear and I feel a lot of hope.
Yeah.
In your words, like from how it was, and I feel the same.
We have to have hope, like I said, I'm an optimistic person by nature, and if I didn't have that hope that Tel Aviv and Israel would get back to the Tel Aviv of the past that I knew and loved so much, like I'd be gone, like that hope is what is making me stay here. And I think it's what makes like a lot of my friends who also like are not Israelis. They could easily go back to Australia, to England, to South Africa, to America, and they haven't yet. It's always like crossed our minds because we can. We're fortunate that we can go back to these countries, but no, none of my really close friends this past year have done it, and I really hope they don't.
Yeah, me too. We have to finish. I'm so grateful you came, and it was so interesting to hear you. And it was also really important for me to hear what I remember, it's really inside, deeply in my heart of Tel Aviv. And the hope.
We have,
and it's great to have people like you that reminds other people like me how it used to be, and it's still gonna be like, I don't know when.
It has to.
But it will be.
It has to, right? Like it just has to, and hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah.
And you can come back, and like we can go back in time 7 years to the Tel Aviv that once was, and go party on the beach.
And be like, remember the pandemic?
Yeah.
What was that pandemic?
Wow. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Olivia. It's great.